On today's episode of Elevate Your Wealth, we're going to be talking about some very interesting things. In fact, we're going to be talking about older savers dangerously unprepared for financial shocks that can pop up. We have a great article from Goldman Sachs. They think 2025 is going to be a great year. And then one of our last segments is going to be common financial mistakes that can ruin your retirement. Be sure to avoid them. That and much more on today's episode of Elevate Your Wealth.
And now, Elevate Your Wealth with Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them right here in Seattle. Elevated Financial Management. Check them out online. It is a wonderful resource website. All letters, EFMNW.com. That's EFMNW.com. There are links to the TV show. Our radio shows are in podcast form. There's just great information there. Plus, you can get to know Elevated Financial Management. I'm Morgan Patrick, and each and every week, my privilege to go back and forth with Mark and Casey about retirement. They've got 42 years combined experience between the two of them, and they're certified financial fiduciaries. Gentlemen, before we jump into articles, let's just catch up, man. How have you been?
Good. Yeah, it's the new year, right? Exciting to kick everything off. 2024 was a wild ride in a lot of ways for the stock market and finances and among many other things. And we're really looking forward to 2025. We're going to talk about kind of what some of the future might hold, what that looks like, what some of the financial folks are predicting. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how we can shield ourselves from any issues that might arise, right? That's what we're always talking about, is how to be successful in your retirement despite what happens in the market. But no, things have been going well. We're hiring a couple new folks here at the office. And
growing, I like it.
Yeah. What would you add to that, Mark?
Well, I was going to say, too, we're doing some pretty cool upgrades in our office. We're changing themes in our conference rooms. Are going to be Seattle sports-based themes. Our big conference room up front is going to be all Seahawk-based. The one in the back that we use a lot is going to be Mariner-based, and then we're going to have an old Sonics throwback conference room. So we're looking forward to that. I think a lot of our clients love to talk their favorite teams here, so we're looking forward to those upgrades and changes as well.
I'll tell you, it's exciting, man. And again, the opportunity to just talk about your own retirement situation. And we know that a lot of you out there have been really good savers and you've accumulated well, but you haven't thought about the planning process. And that's why we're here. We offer up complimentary appointments. We'll tell you about those as we move through the program. And again, you're not agreeing to become a client if you grab one of these appointments, but you're leaving the checkbook at home. You're going to see where you are in the planning process. And maybe you haven't started, or maybe you're in the middle of something and you need that second opinion. All right, so guys, this jumped out at you. Money Week, pinning this one, Katie Williams, older savers dangerously unprepared for financial shocks in retirement. And that's just, people aren't ready for it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Morgan, because this is something that's a big concern for both Casey and I. We're seeing this. Clients are coming in. There's so many things that they're not prepared for yet. They haven't really thought about where do they want to live. We know in the Seattle area it's very costly here, right? And they're not thinking much about that in the long run. What about where they want to live, right? What type of house? Are they going to be able to age in place? Have they thought about that? We can talk about long-term care a little bit. That is a major concern. If there's going to be an atom bomb go off in somebody's great plan, it's going to be that, right? The cost can be, it can ruin your retirement if it happens to one, let alone both of you in retirement. So there's a lot of things. A lot of clients are just not prepared, especially mentally, for understanding the true cost of retirement and what it's going to take to have a successful retirement where they're not paring down their life so much because there was no preparation, there was no plan, and then some of these unexpected expenses rear their ugly head, and they got all kinds of issues that they were not planning for, and it can really cause a lot of strain on even the best laid plans of mice and men.
Well, I mean, we talk about it on this program almost on a weekly basis. I mean, this article describes it as a financial shock. We talk about it ad nauseum as the what if.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's unpredictable. You mentioned the healthcare part of this. So many people get fixated on just the idea of that early part of retirement. And I think that's what we all think of retirement. We think of those go-go years. Let's enjoy it, right? We've worked all our lives. Now it's retirement time. And we don't factor in what can be one of these shockers. And that is, what if I need, I need serious health care? What if I need long-term care? What if I haven't thought about the tax part of it and how it's all going to come into the planning?
It can even be maybe smaller things, right? Like you might need a new car during retirement, right? Or at least a different car than you have, right? And that vehicle is going to need upkeep. And it seems as though a lot of times those type of things slip our minds when we think about retirement, right? For whatever reason, that maintenance, that upkeep, possibly replacing a vehicle doesn't really come into the picture. But when you have more time on your hands, right, because you're no longer working, you probably want to be out doing things, which is going to require a car and upkeep, maintenance, and gas and insurance and all those kinds of things, right? So, that kind of comes back to something that we've talked about quite a bit on the show, which is that a lot of people think that their retirement is going to be less expensive than their working life, right? They think that their retirement will require 75% of whatever their working income was, or 80%, or there's different numbers thrown around out there. But let's wipe all those like financial statistics from your mind for a second and just think about what that really means. If you no longer go to work, there's two things that change, right? You have more time and less income. The first one is a great thing. The less income is a real problem, right? But ultimately, what are you going to do with your extra time? You're going to want to go live your life, right? You don't have a clock to punch anymore. You don't have to show up anywhere. You can do whatever you like. You can make plans of your own. You can do anything you want. But generally, that requires more income to do so. And so we have a lot of clients that actually require more income in retirement to live the retirement that they are hoping to live than they needed while they were working, because they're out being active. They're doing more than they used to do. And so, that's something that always sticks in my mind when folks think that they're going to need less income in retirement. And that may be true for some, but it is not a blanket truth, right? Sure. It's very individual. It's very unique.
It's funny.
What do we say all the time, guys? Once you retire, every day is a Saturday.
Every day's Saturday, yeah.
Last time I checked, I spent money on Saturday.
That's the most expensive day of the week.
Exactly. And like Casey's meant, one of the biggest issues is pensions have become a thing of the past. That is such a hurdle for so many of our clients, because their only guaranteed source of income is going to be Social Security. That's it. And so if they don't have a pension, we've got to find a way to create a private pension, because our happiest clients, Morgan, are hands down the ones that have a minimum of two sources of guaranteed income, some sort of pension and Social Security. If you don't have that, living on Social Security in this area, it's just realistically not going to happen, because you're not going to be able to do anything, let alone even pay your basic expenses. You just can't do it. It's not possible.
I'll tell you, it's a solid article. And again, older savers just unprepared for financial shocks in retirement. And we're kind of talking about, ways that you can boost your financial resilience in retirement. Just understanding, as Casey and Mark have just talked about, understanding what the true cost of retirement is, because it does have a price tag. And there are a lot of people that are ill-prepared as they move into retirement. They are sitting, and this might be you. You might be in this category. You're sitting on your accounts. You've saved well, but how are you going to draw down on those accounts? How are taxes going to be eating away at those accounts? Because most of your accounts are probably tax deferred.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That is a big piece of it, right? And it's something that is oftentimes missed. We've even had some funny ones where folks thought their 401k wasn't going to be taxed, and trust me, I wish that there was a way to make that happen, right? That would be great. Or same with Social Security, right? There's misconceptions that Social Security just isn't taxed. And that's not the case for most folks anyways, right? But there's a big culture shock that the article mentions, and I'll just touch on this briefly. It mentions ease into retirement with part-time work. That's such a big one. If you abruptly end working, for a lot of folks that goes really well, right? And they're happy, I don't have to get up and punch a clock anymore, and that's exciting. But for some folks, that's a major culture shock, right? And it's better to kind of ease into it if you can, right? If that's something that might affect you. And it requires a little soul searching to figure that out, right? I'll share this story because I think it's so cool. A couple that listened to the radio came in. and met with me. And the husband's a little bit older than the wife. She's 50, and he's just right around 60, a little less than that. But she wasn't sure that they wanted to retire 5 years from now, so at 55 and 65. After going through everything, she's actually able to retire now. They're both able to retire now. And so she's going to have a really early retirement. We were talking about pulling the trigger on that beginning of January, right, in 2025. But there's a little bit of a culture shock there of, wow, I didn't think I was going to be retiring right now, right? So we're actually putting that off till the end of the first quarter so that she can wrap her head around that. And I think that's so important, right? And it really shows the reflectiveness that she's had, right? And the thinking that she's had about how that would affect her, that abrupt end to work. And that's something that a lot of people don't have that type of thought unless they're working with somebody, right? And that's why we continue to offer a written financial plan put together by our team of certified financial planners, because that's the type of thing that comes up in those conversations, right? So for those listening at home, this is your opportunity to get that written financial plan, for you to have a custom tailored, not only conversation, but a custom purpose-built retirement plan just for you based on your goals and what you'd like to do. It'll talk about taxes, inflation, income, all the things that we discuss on our show. Don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call.
Complimentary appointment awaits. Here's the number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Call that number now. Move to the front of the line. Grab one of these complimentary appointments. You're leaving the checkbook at home. You'll walk out with a written financial plan. 866-668-3625. When we return on Elevate Your Wealth, we're back to the articles, and we will talk about Goldman Sachs and what they think about 2025. It's all coming up next. We are back on Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. They have 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business. They are certified financial fiduciaries, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for, plan for their retirement. I'm Morgan Patrick, and each and every week it's always about just the importance of having a plan, being proactive, getting ahead of this thing, and making sure you're ready for your retirement years. And guys, we get into the articles, and this next one, Rethinking65.com gave it to us. Goldman Sachs seeing prosperous 2025 despite, well, we can say political uncertainties. Just your thought. I mean, obviously this is something that everybody's concerned with. How is this going to play out? We just have to wait and see, but you can plan for this.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that, Morgan, right? You hit the nail on the head. And I think sometimes there is too much value put on various articles or statements from financial folks, whatever financial folk you might listen to, that we're going to have a great 2025 or 2025 is going to be terrible, right? There's too much emphasis put on those type of thoughts. Here's the truth of it. None of us know, right? And I say that, and everybody knows that nobody knows, right? But that's the reality. And I think sometimes that gets missed on the retail investor, on those that are approaching retirement. And you tend to anchor to a certain point, right? You read an article from such and such a company, Goldman, for example, and it said that 2025 was going to be really good. And you're a positive, hopeful person. And so you think that that's true. I hope that it is. I don't know, right? It very well could not be. I can pretty much say with a large level of certainty, I don't recall, but I'm sure that in 2007 and 2008, there were articles that the next year was going to be a really good year for the market. And there was articles that the next year was going to be real bad. And it ended up being real bad. But there's also plenty of times where it says that the market's going to be down and it's up, right? Like the last time Trump was elected, everybody thought it was going to be bad and it turned out great for the market, right? And so I think that that's really important to have a balanced view. And this is the key. This is why this stuck out to us. To have a plan that allows you to be successful, whether or not this article is right or any other article is right. You need to be successful despite what happens to the market, instead of your success being dependent on the market. And that's really why this one jumped out at us.
Yeah, in fact, I was just thinking, well, we were just talking about things. Look at how much discussion there's been about recession. hard landing, soft landing, and none of it basically came to fruition. Like all these, think tankers and all the talking heads have said. All I know is it's really been better than what most thought when it came to the recession part of this. But what I did like in this first paragraph, it did talk. We know big changes are going to come with Trump, but they don't know what's going to happen with all the big shifts that could happen with tariffs. If he starts taking it out on all these, countries and their products coming in the U.S., we have no idea what could happen with that. We can think that we do, but different regulations, different market forces, all of the different crises happening around the world. Anybody that thinks they can predict this stuff, I don't know, man. I know we can't. We don't expect our clients to try and give them that information. We just want to have them a plan so that no matter what ends up happening in those circumstances, right, they're going to have an exit strategy, right? Or something else that they can do, and they're not going to be stuck and lose a bunch of money because they have no plan.
Right. And it calls to mind, Mark, you and I were talking with our chief investment officer, and he quoted something to me that I thought was so interesting. We were talking about a particular financial pundit, right? Somebody out there. And I won't mention any names, but we were talking about how this person is kind of perpetually calling for a downturn in the market, right? They're perpetually calling. And our investment officer said, he used this phrase that I thought was so cool. He said, yeah, that guy has called 7 of the last 3 financial downturns. And I thought, wow, that's a really good way to say it, right? And that's really what it is, right? You have folks that are constantly calling for a downturn, and you have folks that are constantly calling for a great year. They're going to be right sometimes, right? Yep. But the truth is nobody's right all the time. That's the point that we're trying to make. But that doesn't mean that your retirement changes, right? If you're 5 years into retirement and the market's down, do you suddenly decide, well, we're not going to take that trip anymore. My goals have totally shifted. I don't want to spend time with my friends and family any longer. I'd like to sit on the couch and do nothing. I don't need to pay my bills. Yeah, that's not it, right? Your goals haven't changed. So if your income, if your retirement is dependent on the success of the market, you're setting yourself up to be in a tough spot, right? In a tough spot. Not necessarily for failure, but in a tough spot. And it may mean that some years into retirement, you don't get to do the things that you want to do because you're dependent on the financial success of the broader S&P 500 or whatever index we want to look at.
Well, and you're not ready. You're going to be blindsided. If you have a plan, if you're working with fiduciaries, if you map this out, yes, there's going to be chaos, but there's going to be far less of it because you have a plan to get you to and through retirement. Now, an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. Meet with the team, Mark, Casey, and their group, and see where you are. And again, these are complimentary appointments. An opportunity for you to kind of see where you are. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. How do you grab an appointment? You call this number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Look, you're going to walk out with a written financial plan, and you're not agreeing to become a client if you grab one of these appointments. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to get pigeonholed. I'm going to get trapped in here. And that's not how it works. They're going to get to know you. You're going to get to know them. They may not take you as a client. I mean, this is a get-to-know-you type meeting, but it's an opportunity for you to educate yourself. And again, just kind of see where you are. Call the number, 866-668-3625. So back to it. Goldman Sachs, prosperous 2025, despite all the political uncertainties. Now, and I'll tell you this, guys, we talk about this too. I mean, don't get so focused on the financial pornography that you can't see the bigger picture because we get so glued into it and we follow it every single day. You got to back off of that.
It's distracting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have a plan and let that pulse rate come down just a little bit.
Yeah, one of the things that this article talks about, too, that we have no idea what the impact is going to be, and that's AI, right? Mm-hmm. Look at how much has happened in just the past year, but there are so many things as far as regulation, concerns that everybody's having, including the government. How far are they going to stick their beady little hands into this thing? But AI can do some wonderful things, but it can be really dangerous as well. So, but everybody's knowing that that could propel a lot of things in this year's market, right? And you got chip manufacturers and all these different things that we have no idea what the total impact is going to be, but we still need to be a little cautious too. And this is, sometimes people tend to throw everything into the wind, right? And what happens when it gets on that, in that wave, it can be devastating. So we got to be careful as well.
Yeah, and I thought this was really interesting. This is a quote from the article. It says, although AI will have a transformative effect, one of its costs is greater power consumption.
Yeah.
They note that a chat GPT search consumes 6 to 10 times more power than a traditional Google search. That's crazy, right? 6 to 10 times more power.
Yeah.
It's not like our searches are, the amount of searches that people make is going to go down. If anything, they've gone up with Chat GPT because it's kind of fun to use at the moment and play around with. But to use 6 to 10 times more power, that has an effect on the grid, which in turn affects many other things, right? That if the grid can no longer sustain all of everything that's coming its way, that has a negative impact on electric cars, right? So, I mean, that list goes on. And we live in a time where everything is more connected than it's ever been, right? The market used to really be about companies and the sustainability of a company and what their future looked like, things like that. There's so much more that happens now. I mean, Elon Musk sends a tweet and the market goes crazy, right? So it's very different than it's ever been. And we've got to find a way to participate in the market and yet shield ourselves to some extent to make sure that our income is reliable. And it's a complicated task. It's a complicated thing to put together. And it takes time, it takes a conversation, and it's something that you have to have if you want to have a successful retirement.
Well, let's help some people out. Mark, tell us about these appointments. Again, they are complimentary.
Yeah, please leave your checkbook at home. If you're listening today and maybe you're just a little concerned about your income, you're not going to be fortunate enough to have a pension, please give us a call. We're going to look at your tax situation. We do a lot of tax planning here. Maybe a Roth conversion might be something that you need to look into that can really help you tax-wise. So please let our team of certified financial planners put together a plan specifically for you based on your individual needs and circumstances. So please pick up the phone, give us a call, let us help.
Elevated Financial Management offering up these complimentary appointments, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. And again, this is complimentary. You're not agreeing to become a client. There's no obligation, but kind of see where you are. And there are a lot of you out there that have not started planning, but you're sitting on your portfolio. We congratulate you. You've saved well, but now what are you going to do? You got to start the planning process. And the other part, well, you're halfway down the path, and you need that second opinion. Grab one of these appointments right now. 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. When we return, we'll get back into the articles, common financial mistakes that can absolutely positively ruin your retirement, and you need to avoid these. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. Your hosts are Casey Elkins and Mark Stimpson. They have 42 years combined experience between the two of them in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for that retirement. They are certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. My privilege each and every week to go back and forth with the fellas talking about retirement, the importance of having that plan. Got a couple of things to tell you about. One, the website. It's a great resource. All letters, EFMNW.com. Again, that's EFMNW.com. There are links to the TV show there, also radio shows in podcast form. We have another website that the guys wanted to put out there for you, our listener, because taxes are very, very important. Casey, fill us in on taxbillseattle.com.
Yeah, taxbillseattle.com. It's a really cool website. It does exactly what it sounds like. It talks about your tax bill, and it's an opportunity for our listeners to go in, input their information without having a phone call, without having a full conversation. You can just kind of put in some numbers, and it'll walk you through what tax savings might be available for you. Because most folks have the majority of their funds saved inside of a 401k or an IRA, which are tax deferred, right? So that's money that you've put in and you didn't pay tax on, and it's growing, right? Hopefully. And at some point, you'll take that money out and you'll have to pay taxes on every dollar of it. And so this is an opportunity for you to kind of see what that tax looks like. If you got $1 million 401k, the taxes that you're going to pay on that are pretty hefty, right? It's notable, it's sizable. And so this is a way for you to kind of look at that, determine if there's an opportunity to do something about it, see what that tax savings might look like. And then ultimately from there, you can open up a conversation with us if you'd like to have a more one-on-one tailored approach as to what that looks like for you in your individual circumstance.
All right, again, that website, taxbillseattle.com. Again, taxbillseattle.com. All right, our article that we're going to get to now in this portion of the program, common financial mistakes that can ruin your retirement. You got to avoid these. A lot of people feel like, guys, you know what? It's my 401k. I put the money away for my entire working life. Why can't I tap into that, guys? Why? It's my money.
Yeah, that's something, and that's why it's the lead point in this article, right? Where that can cause you real issues. If you go into your 401k, we'll talk about whether it's to, maybe pay for a wedding or college education, whatever. It can have a very big, nasty effect on your own retirement dollars, right? Because you're taking money out of something that you had earmarked or had designated for income down the road. So if you tap into that, it's so easy to what we call start to cannibalize that plan, that it can have a very negative effect, especially when you need those dollars to last 20, 30 or more years. And so tapping into that, it really does have to be a major league emergency before you're going to want to do that. Otherwise, you need to pretty much stay away from your 401k and not take money out.
Yeah, it's a big part of that is it's time in the market that wins, right? And so when you stop contributing because you're paying off your 401k loan or you have less money invested, whatever that circumstance is, you're losing out on that time in the market. That's the biggest thing. And it's something you can't go back and get, right? Maybe I could put it this way. When you think about investing, if let's say you're 5-10 years from retirement, when you look back, do you wish that you had started investing at the time that you did, or do you wish that you had started investing sooner, right? I think everybody would say, well, I wished I had invested sooner. If you take a 401k loan and you're paying all that back, you are no longer investing sooner, right? You are missing out on that time invested. And that's the complication. And I think sometimes that's missed because people go, well, I'm borrowing from myself. Well, I mean, that sounds really good, right? But how does it work and how does it actually affect you? That's the question, right? And again, it takes planning. It takes a conversation. It takes time to work those things out. But we think that's really important. The next thing on this article, I think, is a big one. We talk about this a lot, the cost of assisted living. I mean, that's huge. And that's something that if we are not planning for that, or if we have not taken the time to determine, do we have enough money to self-insure, or do we actually need long-term care insurance, which most people are going to go for long-term care insurance. Even folks that have large net worths will still go for long-term care insurance because they understand that using somebody else's money in that circumstance is likely the better thing. But the cost of long-term care is huge. You want to add something to that, Mark?
Well, I was just going to say, what a lot of our clients do, they're thinking about their retirement in terms of their current living situation. They're not projecting out what it could be when they don't have the health to be able to maybe age in place or stay at home, right? They need assisted living, like you mentioned. I watched my grandparents lose everything financially when they had to deal with my grandfather's Alzheimer's. So again, these are things that can blow a plan up. So you need to really think about that. Another big one that we kind of try and talk with our clients about is you get retired and you rush into making a big move somewhere. Now, we've helped people set up in other countries, Thailand, Colombia, but what do we have to be really worried about their case if they rush into this?
Well, I mean, it's the unknown, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is. If you haven't actually lived somewhere, everywhere's fun on vacation, right? I mean, everywhere's fun on vacation, right? And even if it's a long vacation, 2 weeks or a month, but what's it like to actually live there? Because when you're on vacation, you're doing lots of things, right? And you're out exploring and everything's new and you eat out all the time. And at least I do. Maybe that's why I'm now on a diet.
But you can come back home, right?
Yeah,
You can
right.
come back
But
home.
you come back home. But see, when you move somewhere, that's your life is there now, right? So not every day is a fun vacation, right? I mean, hopefully it's as fun as you can make it, but there's a certain level of reality that has to be discussed with that. And so, when folks are talking about doing that, we always make sure that they have spent an extended period of time there first before they move, right? Not that we're trying to talk anybody out of it, but it's different when you live somewhere versus being there on vacation.
You need to go rent a place because the culture, the customs, taxes can be different, and that can even be different inside the same country. So again, we want our clients to really know what they're getting into, and you can't do that if you don't go investigate and spend some time, like you said, a minimum of 3 to 6 months before you ever jump into saying, okay, I'm going to move to Ecuador. Right? You got to plan this out.
Yeah, it's like taking it for a test drive. I like that.
Yeah.
You're not fully committing, but you are, you're taking a little bit of a drive. You're going to spend some time in the locale that you're thinking about relocating to before you just jump in, right?
Yep.
Again, it's all important to have a plan. And, you work with fiduciaries, you map this out, you talk about your ideas and your goals for retirement, and that becomes part of the planning process. Now, there's going to be an opportunity during the course of this show to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management at no cost, no obligation. There's no pressure. You're not agreeing to become a client, just to kind of see where you are. How do you grab one of these appointments? You call this number, 866-668-3625. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call the number, secure an appointment right now, 866-668-3625. Common financial mistakes that can ruin your retirement, how to avoid them. We're talking about that. Again, that first one, getting into your 401k before you retire. That's a big mistake. Not prepping for what may be coming, and that is assisted living, long-term care, and health care in general. And then rushing into a big move, say, hey, you know what? I'm going to move here without really planning it, without really test driving it. Next up, what are you leaving behind? What about your estate plan?
Yeah, this is something that a lot of people want to put off too, right? They don't want to talk about it. But getting a will, we're big believers in trusts over wills, because the trust, if you have a good trust set up, it's going to eliminate the probate process, which anybody that's gone through this, if you're a listener, you know exactly what I'm meaning when I say that. So again, getting some estate planning done, because if you don't do it, I promise you, the state in which you live, they're gonna have a plan for you, and you may not like it, right? But it doesn't matter because you didn't take care of business. So we're big believers in making sure that you get some estate planning done, which we can help you with in our office as well. Another one that we just would tell you to stay away from most of the time would be buying a timeshare. That's something else that sounds good because you think you can travel and save on expenses, but by the time you really learn about all the expenses that can be occurred with a timeshare, it can turn out to be a disaster if you're not careful. So that's one that we may want to talk at length about versus just jumping in and buying one.
Mark, you don't want to go buy a timeshare with me, man? Come on.
No.
Yeah, that's one that a lot of people, it sounds really enticing, and it's not that it can't work out for some. That's not what we're saying, right? We're not saying that they're all bad,
right.
But it does seem pretty common of like, I'm retiring, I'm buying a timeshare. Okay, well, let's dig into that first, right? And make sure that it fits for what you're trying to do. There's fees and renovations and things like that can tack on a lot of money that you didn't plan for. And so the travel costs, and you can only use it so much, right? There's a lot of things to consider. Yeah. So it's just something that we want to make sure that cost is counted, that everything's weighed out before you make those types of decisions. There's a couple other things in here that I think are really good. I'm going to go to this one. It says not creating a schedule. I think that's really important, to what you said earlier, Morgan. Every day is Saturday, right? Yeah. We talk about that a lot. And that's a great thing, but that can also drive you crazy, right? If you don't have some level of consistency and planning and things that you're taking care of and accomplishment, right? We're all born with some level of desire to accomplish things, to get things done, right? That's within us. And that's nurtured as we get older, right? And we go to work, and there's certain things that we want to accomplish and goals that we have in our lives. When we retire, that need, that desire doesn't just go away, right? It doesn't just disappear. And so we still want to be accomplishing things in our lives. We still want to have goals. We still want to be moving forward. And it's great if you want to, dip your toe into retirement and relax a little bit and sleep in and those kinds of things. That's great. But we want to be careful and make sure that we don't let that kind of eat away all of our days. And so, again, it all comes back to having a plan, right? It does. It comes down to having a conversation, purpose-built planning, right? So how can you get your written financial plan put together by a team of certified financial planners? Now's your opportunity. We'll talk about taxes with you. We'll talk about creating income, reliable, sustainable income. We'll talk about how we can be successful despite what's going on in the market, and whatever else is going on in your individual circumstance. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a shout.
All right, here's the phone number. Grab one of these complimentary appointments and do it right now. 866-668-3625. Again, the number, 866-668-3625. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Again, these are complimentary. There's no obligation. Call now, 866-668-3625. When we return on Elevate Your Wealth, it's time for retirement scenarios. I throw them at the fellas. We see what they come up with. That's all next. Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. Your hosts are Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. 42 years combined experience between these two in the retirement planning business. They're certified financial fiduciaries, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for retirement. That's what this show is about. I'm Morgan Patrick. My privilege to go back and forth with the guys. And again, we talk retirement, the importance of being proactive with your planning as opposed to reactive. We applaud everyone out there that's been saving for their retirement their entire working lives. If you do not have a plan and you get to retirement, it could come to a screeching halt. It's like, you get out on the freeway and you put the cruise control on. It'd be like slamming the brakes on, right? If you don't have a plan, because a lot of things are going to come your way. Make sure you're ready for them. And one of the things we like to do on the show, we wrap up with scenarios from time to time. And these are things that can happen in retirement. And we throw them at the guys and see what they come up with, all right? But remember this, you may have a scenario that's similar to what we're going to talk about, but it's not exactly what you're going through. So make sure you have a customized plan that's dedicated to what you need in retirement. All right. So the first one, guys, is a 55-year-old, $400,000 in a 401k, wants to retire at 60, all right, so 5 years away, but worries that the savings will not last. They're wondering if they should boost contributions now or explore other savings vehicles. How much could additional contributions benefit them, say, in just those 5 years?
Well, it's kind of a challenging question to some extent, right? Because $400,000, depending on your individual circumstance, may be enough. It may not be enough, right? It really comes down to how much income you're looking for in retirement. So, and what your other income sources look like. Maybe you've got a great pension, right? Maybe you've got a state pension or federal pension or something, and Social Security. So maybe you've got great income, and that $400,000 is really just about growing for the future, and maybe you'll take distributions from time to time. I can say this, I don't think anybody's ever going to look back and wish that they had not saved so well for retirement. So if you have the opportunity to continue to contribute, boosting contributions now would absolutely make sense.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's for a couple more years and you're thinking, well, I'm going to retire in a couple years, that's okay, right? Boost those contributions, especially if there's a match, right? Because if you're getting a match, that's money you wouldn't get otherwise. So, that is something. And those contributions, they really can have an impact. Let's kind of play that scenario a little bit, right? Let's say we're talking about $20,000 of contributions. That $20,000 worth of contributions in the year 2024 at the beginning of the year, that would have had a tremendous growth, right? Because the S&P did well in that time frame, and so that could have a huge impact for you, right? And that's growth that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten. So, we're always believers in getting as much of the match as you can get. contributing. You'll never look back and wish you had saved less for retirement. But, is the amount discussed, that $400,000 or so, how do we make that last? If you don't need a great deal of income in retirement, or you've got other income sources, things like that, that $400,000 might be enough, right? If you have to do it 100% on your own, and you might have a good Social Security, but that's your only income source, and you have a higher income need, 400,000 probably isn't going to cut it, right? Nope. So it's really situational. It really is individual and unique. And that's why we're always talking about a custom built retirement plan, because your individual circumstance is different than anybody else's, right? And so you've got to have something purpose built, custom tailored just for what you're looking for.
To go along with that, this is the same thing that we have to do when they talk to us, should they take their Social Security at 62, right? Yeah. Or wait. We know if you get to full retirement age, which is based on the year you were born, but let's just use 66 for the sake of argument. If you wait from 66 to 70, you're guaranteed 8% on your money. That's a big deal. You're going to get 32% more Social Security, and over a 20 or 30-year period of time, that is going to be a significant amount of money added to your income. So again, this is why you want to think these things out. And I'm just going to share a quick story with someone who is a relative that took an option of accelerated, at 55, he accelerated his pension, and this past November, he turned 65, and his pension got reduced $500 a month, and he was so discouraged about it. And I wanted to say, that's why you needed to talk about this option, because it's backfired on him, because he thought, I'll be dead by the time I'm 65. And I looked at him and said, well, how'd that work out for you? Right? See, so again, these are things that you need to really think about, but you can never, as Casey mentioned, save too much money, because it's all going to be determined by how much income you need and how much you've saved to be able to create income.
Yep. And everybody's different. You guys point this out every time we get into scenarios, and people are going to say, hey, I heard this one scenario and I'm kind of in that boat. It's not exactly. I mean, there are things, you can plan for this. And so, there are a lot of people out there that feel like, well, I haven't saved enough. Why should I even come in and talk to anybody? You don't know that. You don't know what you don't know. Right. The opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management is right now. And these are complimentary appointments. All you've got to do is call 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Maybe you're right there. You've got $250,000 saved towards your retirement. Call the number. Maybe you've got a little bit more than that. Maybe you've got a lot more than that. It's an opportunity to see how this is going to work for you. And look, you'll find out real quickly you're going to need to do some more work, or maybe you're going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice? Have that kind of confidence? Call the number, 866-668-3625. All right, next scenario. A retiree who inherited an IRA wants to understand the tax rules around required distributions, all right? Required minimum distributions. So they're unsure if they need to take the distributions annually or they can just wait. What are the tax implications of each option?
Well, this is something that we're going to say there is some very specific rules. If you look at basically the Secure 2.0, the act that was put into place, 4 years ago now already.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know, that is crazy to think about. But there's a lot of contingency things that may have happened when you inherit the IRA. If that IRA is already in distribution mode from, let's say, your mom or your dad, then those distributions are going to have to continue each year or month, however you want to take them. Now, let's say that distributions had not started and you inherited an IRA and you're not a spouse. Well, then we got some whole different rules we have to worry about. Most likely, now there are some exceptions, but most likely you're going to have to empty that account out in the next 10 years. But there's ways that you can do it. You could wait till the end, at almost 10 years, 9 years and 11 months and 29 days down the road. Then you could take that all out then. Or you could take it out starting now and do distributions for the next 10 years. So there's a lot of intricacies that you need to understand. So before you make any decisions, I highly recommend that you talk with someone that really understands taxes and the different things, because there are a lot of CPAs that are not clear with these distributions and the rules there. So again, talk to somebody that can help you get this all figured out, because it can be very complicated.
And inherited IRAs are inherently complicated, right? To your point, Mark, right, about a spousal beneficiary versus a non-spousal beneficiary. Those are different rules, right? There's also an exception to that if the person inheriting the account is within 10 years of the age person that passed away. So this could not better illustrate the point that your situation, your circumstance is unique to you, right? You may be dealing with an inherited IRA the same as 20 other people, but the age of the person that left it to you and your relationship to that person and your individual circumstance, all those things come into play. And that's why you've got to have that conversation, right? Because you want to make sure that the person that you're having that conversation with has all the details about your individual circumstance. And, just plugging numbers into a computer or a calculator that you find online, it's kind of like Google, right? You'll get some great answers. There's some good information, but how does that information actually apply in your life, in your individual life? How do those answers apply? And that's really the question. One
of the other things you have to be concerned about in this regard too is there are a lot of carriers that will not even take an inherited IRA, the funds from that. It can be very limited if you do want to maybe move them to some other type of an investment strategy. So again, all of these issues can come up, and you really need to work with somebody that understands these different issues and how to deal with them.
All right, we got one more scenario. We'll hit it really quickly, guys. 60-year-old, $500,000 in a 401k, wants to make charitable donations, and they're wondering if moving the funds to an IRA could help them make those qualified charitable distributions, the QCDs, at age 70 and a half, and what steps should they be taking to use their retirement funds for philanthropy?
Well, money in a 401k has got to be moved to an IRA if you want to do a QCD, right? So the very first thing you need to do is get that money to an IRA. If it's already in a 401k, that's your best move to start. And then from there, you can start making decisions as to what that charity looks like. And, that's great. If that's how you want to use those funds, we think that's a wonderful thing. We help a number of our clients with that. There are things to consider, but there can be some benefits to it as well. But yeah, that's the first step that you would need to take, is to get that money to an IRA so that you can then make a qualified charitable distribution.
All right. Well, it's that time. We're going to open up the phone lines. These are complimentary appointments. Mark, walk us through these appointments.
Yeah, if you've saved $250,000 or more, these strategies are going to work best for you. But we just want you to know, pick up the phone if you're concerned about taxes or the things we've been talking about here, different issues that can come up, maybe even inherited in the IRA. What about your income? Do you know where that's going to come from? Is it going to be guaranteed or is it not? What about your investment risk? How close are you to the retirement red zone? Please let our team of certified financial planners put together a plan based on your very unique situation. Keep your checkbook at home, but pick up the phone, give us a call, let us help.
Opportunity is knocking. These are complimentary appointments. Call the number 866-668-3625. That number again, 866-668-3625. If you've saved well and you're closing in on retirement, but you don't have a plan, this is a way to test drive elevated financial management. Call the number if you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement. These strategies are going to work best for you. The number is 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Another edition of Elevate Your Wealth is in the books. For Mark and Casey, I'm Morgan. We'll see you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registered Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.